The soft clinking of cutlery and murmurs of conversation filled Le Jardin Bleu, an elegant restaurant tucked in a quiet corner of Paris. Outside, rain streaked down the glass, catching the warm light like tears sliding over candle flames. Inside, at a table by the window, sat Ethan Grant, a billionaire entrepreneur known across continents, yet utterly alone. His watch cost more than most people earned in a year, but the sadness in his eyes couldn't be bought or hidden. He had come to Paris to finalize a merger, but deep inside, he was running from silence, from grief, from the echo of a woman's laughter he'd lost 2 years ago in an accident that had left him numb to the world. Tonight was supposed to be ordinary. He didn't know it was about to become the night that would change everything. A waitress approached his table. She was young, maybe mid-20s, her uniform slightly worn, her hair tied neatly under a scarf that barely hid how tired she looked. Yet her eyes, deep brown, warm and alive, carried a strength that stood out. "Bonsoir, monsieur, would you like me to recommend something from the menu?" she asked with a polite smile, her accent soft, her English fluent but lightly touched with French melody. Ethan gave a faint nod. "I'll have whatever's best, I don't speak French well." Her gaze flickered across the leather menu and she hesitated. "This one maybe not," she said, gently pointing to the chef's special. "It's complicated." He chuckled. "Complicated food doesn't scare me." She didn't smile back. "Not the food, monsieur, the ingredients, may I?" He nodded again, amused by her seriousness. She leaned closer, lowering her voice as if sharing a secret. "This dish contains ground hazelnut oil. It's not written here, only in French on the back, but are you allergic?" Ethan froze, his hand halfway to the wine glass trembled. "How did you?" "I saw your medical bracelet when you reached for the menu. I read French, so I noticed." Her tone was simple, factual, as if it wasn't a big deal. But for Ethan, it was everything. Hazelnut oil, the very thing that had almost killed him once as a teenager. He exhaled shakily. You just saved my life." She smiled, not realizing the magnitude of what she'd done. "It's nothing, monsieur, just my job." But as she walked away, something shifted in him. He couldn't take his eyes off her, not because of beauty, though she was quietly lovely, but because of that effortless compassion that most people had forgotten how to show. He watched as she moved from table to table, translating, helping, smiling at guests with warmth that never reached her own weary face. There was something about her, a story behind those eyes. When she returned with his meal, he asked gently, "What's your name?" "Clara," she replied. "Do you always save strangers without asking for anything?" She laughed softly. "Maybe not always, but sometimes people need help, even the ones who look like they have everything." Her words struck him harder than he expected. For the first time in years, Ethan smiled, a real, unguarded smile. As the evening passed, they spoke again. He learned she worked 2 jobs, studying languages during the day, dreaming of becoming a translator. Her mother was ill, her rent overdue, yet she carried herself with quiet dignity. He didn't tell her who he was, that he owned the hotel next door, or that his dinner was a pause between meetings worth millions. He just listened. Before leaving, he slipped a note under his bill. "Thank you for saving me, not just tonight, but from forgetting what kindness feels like." He signed only his first name. Clara found the note later and stared at it for a long time. She smiled faintly, unaware that this man, this kind stranger, would walk into her life again in a way she'd never imagine. The next morning, Clara rushed to her second job at the same hotel Ethan owned. She worked in housekeeping there, moving silently from suite to suite, folding towels, wiping mirrors that reflected lives far removed from her own. That day, a special guest was due to arrive. "Be careful," her manager whispered. "The owner himself is visiting, Mr. Ethan Grant." The name hit her like a whisper from last night's rain. It couldn't be, could it? But when she entered the penthouse suite with fresh linen, her breath caught. He was there, standing by the window, looking out over the city, the same calm sadness in his profile. He turned, their eyes met. For a moment both were speechless. "You're," she began. "Yes," he said softly, "and you're the waitress who saved my life." Color flushed her cheeks. "I didn't know you were." He smiled gently. "Does it matter?" She shook her head. "No, monsieur, it doesn't." But he could see something behind her eyes, the exhaustion, the quiet struggle. And suddenly, the billionaire who'd spent years solving business problems realized he wanted to solve something far more important, her life. That evening, he asked her to sit with him not as a waitress, not as staff, but as a person he wanted to know. She refused at first, afraid of what others might think, but he insisted. Over coffee, she told him everything about her mother's illness, the unpaid bills, her abandoned dream of studying in Paris. Ethan listened silently, his mind turning. "You once said people who have everything still need help," he murmured. "You were right, but maybe tonight it's my turn to help you." She frowned slightly. "I didn't do it for reward." "I know," he said, "that's why you deserve one." He offered to fund her mother's treatment and her education. She refused, tears in her eyes. "I can't take your money." "Then take a chance," he said softly. "Come work for me as my translator. I have business in Europe and I need someone I can trust. You speak 5 languages, don't you?" Her lips parted in disbelief. "You'd really hire me?" "I'd be a fool not to," he replied. For the first time in years, Ethan felt something stir inside him, not pity, not charity, but hope. The kind that begins quietly like the first light after a storm. Weeks passed. Clara joined his company, learning fast, translating meetings, traveling beside him. She brought laughter back into his days, warmth into the spaces grief had hollowed out. And one evening, in that same restaurant where it had all begun, Ethan told her the truth. "That night," he said softly, "you didn't just save my life, you reminded me it was worth living again." She looked at him through tears. "You gave me back my dream, Mr. Grant."